This is a video walkthrough of the CRUNCH CFD Graphical User Interface version 3.0. The CRUNCH GUI is available on 3 platforms: Windows, Linux, and Mac OS. All platforms are available in 64-bit. The CRUNCH GUI features a user-friendly interface for pre-processing CFD grids, setting up multi-physics calculations, and post-processing solution files. In addition, the GUI can sync files remotely with a computing cluster, including support for cloud computing, such as Amazon Elastic Cloud. As you can see, the GUI is split into 2 panes. On the left is the user input pane. This is where the user set up and configured the CRUNCH project. On the right is the visualizer pane for displaying the computational domain and boundaries. Above the 2 panes is a toolbar that consists of buttons for performing frequently used tasks, such as validating inputs, executing pre-crunch and post-crunch, and remote file syncing. Finally, we have drop-down menus at the top of the window for file operations, project settings, tools, and access to help documentation. For this walkthrough, I have loaded a multi-module supersonic turbine case. When a project is loaded into the GUI, we first see the Master tab on the left. This tab is for managing modules within the project. Here we see 2 modules listed, one named Rotor and one named Nozzle. Both modules are configured to use the compressible solver. The Rotor module is set up to use 32 processors, while the Nozzle module is set up to use 16. In this Master tab, we can right-click to add or remove modules from the project. We can also execute pre-crunch and post-crunch in batch for all the modules while in this tab. If we click on one of the module tabs, we see in the visualizer that the selected module changes color. Each of the active module's domain boundaries is assigned a unique color that corresponds to the boundary tag number. We can use the visualizer controls to examine the domain boundaries. These controls provide users with many options to view the boundaries, such as toggling each boundary display, switching between mesh and solid view, and quickly reorienting the display. Once a specific module is selected, we see 3 tabs on the left of the user input pane: pre-crunch, crunch, and post-crunch. The pre-crunch tab contains preprocessor configuration settings, including tagging viscous wall boundaries and specifying processor usage, as well as partitioning strategy for mesh and solution restart. The post-crunch tab is for configuring post-processing parameters after a calculation is completed. Here, the user can select what plot file format to export to, process transient data such as trace points, interpolate solution onto another grid, and perform many other useful tasks. Finally, the Crunch tab contains all the parameters for setting up a multi-physics simulation. The typical procedure for setting up a calculation involves specifying the type of simulation and equation of state, then specifying model options such as time accuracy and turbulence model. Input parameters are grouped into sections such as reference or free stream conditions and boundary conditions. The GUI provides useful tools for creating and visualizing initialization zones. Here, 2 box zones are created, and by right-clicking on the zone header, the user has options of copying reference condition values to initialization zones. There are also options for copying and deleting zones, as well as customizing the hierarchy. Trace points can also be easily created in the GUI. The user can either create trace points manually or import multiple points from a file. This wraps up the walkthrough of the Crunch CFD graphical user interface. Please visit crunch.crafttech.com for more information or email crunchinfo@crafttech.com.